This conference will now be recorded.
All right, Mike, it's all yours.
Thanks everybody for signing up and attending this. I got to thank a few people that let me take pictures of the cars or sent me pictures or answered my dumb questions when I called with them. And hopefully I can present something for everybody to learn a little bit today. We'll start off here. As Nick said, it's co-sponsored by Heart of Ohio and Indiana chapter. Start off with the 53 dash, kind of the layout. You can see 53s through 57, the basic dash layout is pretty much the same. We'll go through the different parts here. There's a bare dash with nothing on it. You can see all the holes, it's pre-drilled. The end caps are sewed on, and then the pads are glued to the dash. The center part of the dash, you got the choke on the 53s to the left side of the radio, the lighter to the right side of the radio. I'm not going to go into the gauges much or the radios much. We will get to that in the part 3 and part 4. The lighters for 53s are a little different configuration on the outside. They're also a 6-volt lighter. All the 6-cylinder cars, 53 through 55, have 6-volt systems, where the 55s with the V8s have a 12-volt system, so it's a total different lighter. The light switch is clear to the right side of the dash on all these through 57. The bezel behind the light switch on 53s is considerably smaller than 54s and 55s. To the right side of the steering column, you got the heater, which controls the blower fan, the speeds on the blower fan. If you pull it out, it puts it up on the defrost, pushed in, goes down in the heater area. The choke has a large tapered bezel on it. You can see the ignition switch. The cowl vent down below has a tulip-shaped knob on it where you push down for the 4 clicks to open up the cowl vent. The 54 choke bezel is not tapered like the 53s. There is some overlap between 53, 54, so it's not exactly when that cutoff was at the changeover of the date, but pretty close on most of these knobs and bezels. A wiper switch is beside the light switch, just to the left of the steering column. All 53s, 54s, and 55s
So
had
how do I raise the volume?
Pardon me?
There we go.
All 53s, 54s, 55s had park brake alarms on them. Starting in 56, it became a true option. Wiper switch, there was 2 different styles of windshield washers, on the 53s. Early styles had a foot pump and did not have the little push button in the center. It was controlled by a foot pump. Somewhere around VIN 175 range, they went to a pump inside the glass container, and then they put the push button on the wiper switch itself. There's a picture of the wiper switch with a large bezel on it. The wiper switch had 2 different bezels. The foot pumps had a smaller bezel than the vacuum pumps. I can't tell you why, but that's the way it was. The courtesy lights were glass lenses. And in this picture, you can also see the passenger side hood release in 53s and early 54s. There was 2 hood releases, one on each side of the dash. Steering wheel, all rims in 53 and 54 were white. The center horn on the 53s, 4s, and 5s had a chrome extension ring around them to blow the horn. The center cap had the Chevrolet insignia at the top and the Corvette at the bottom with the cross flags. And the reproductions aren't quite as sharp as what the originals were. A little more, originals were a little more defined than what the reproductions are. Turn signal, however, was used from 53 to 60. Had a kind of an off-white end on it, kind of a bigger in the middle and tapered toward both ends. The mirrors on 53s was chrome plated steel. It had a thin jam nut on the 53s and some maybe possibly early 54s. The shifter on all Power Glide 53, 4s, and 5s was the same, had the same tulip-shaped knob on it, and the shift pattern was inscribed in top of the knob. There was a jam nut on the bottom side. Went down to a bell-shaped piece that was on the side of the transmission tunnel. In this picture, you can also see the tulip-shaped knob for the cowl vent hanging off to the upper left-hand corner. This particular picture was from at least a 54 because it does not have the passenger side hood release over there by the courtesy light. There is the cowl vent location, kind of toward the center of the dash underneath the 2 gauges to the right of the ignition switch. Hood releases, as I said, the 53s and possibly early 54s had 2 of them, one on each side. Can't hardly see the one on the driver's side, so here's a little better picture of it. Also, the parking brake is located in that same particular area, a chrome-plated T-knob. The 53s on the hood release had an extension that was pop riveted or riveted, I won't say pop riveted, riveted to the dash, and it was painted the lower dash color. And then the hood release itself was bolted to that extension. You can see the courtesy light on the driver's side over in the corner there. A 54 dash, you can see the right side hood release is gone. This is a picture out of the owner's manual in the 54s. Kind of give the owner an idea where everything was at. Some early 54s, the choke and the heater control was reversed. There wasn't very many of them. I really don't know what the VIN number range was that was done, but there has been noted on some original cars that this is the way it was. And the choke and the wiper got reversed on the 54s. Can't tell you why. You can see the wiper still has the push button. It still has the vacuum pump in the jar. There's a better picture of the large bezel on the wiper, the 54s. A 54 lighter, you can see it don't have the little slots along the side as the 53 did. And you can see in this area right here, it does say 6 volt on it. A 54 mirror was polished stainless steel, and it had a shoulder locking nut or adjustment nut on it. It probably wasn't quite as shiny as the 53s and the chrome steel. All 53s up to sometime in 61, the silvering on the mirrors was on the back side. So an original mirror, you should have a space when you put something up to the mirror face itself. You can kind of see between my finger right there, the space on the glass, where it reflects from the back side. You can see the space between it. All 53s through 57 defrost outlets were chromed. There is supposedly some 55s that did not have heaters, and they still were there. They were not hooked up, and especially in the 56, 57s where they you could not, or the heater was an option and it was not ordered. They still have the defrosters on them too. Here's the hood release on the 54s. You can see the extension bracket is going, and it bolts straight to the bottom of the dash. You can see it's still a glass lens on that, because the glass lens kind of has a crosshatch area on it. Or we'll see when you get to the plastic ones, they're kind of smooth. Here's a 54 pennant blue car with the interior. You can see the top of the dash is painted same as the outside, but the steering wheel rim is still the white. '55, when the V8s come out, the choke was no longer needed. The V8s had an automatic choke on the carburetor, so we lost a knob here. The wiper is still up to the right of the heater control. You can see the red car had a red rim on the steering wheel in '55. Here is the courtesy lights, and you can see the difference between the glass and the plastic lens. A '55 copper car, you can see the steering wheel has changed to copper instead of white. In the Harvest Gold cars, the rim of the steering wheel was yellow, with the center part being a green. Late in '55, they come out with a 3-speed. The bezel around the rubber gasket was stainless steel. You can see the imprint of the numbers for the shift pattern on the outside of the rim. Also, the 50 and the 3-speeds did not have a jam nut underneath the ball on top of the shifter. '56, you can see basically the same layout, except the they had basically a small console on the transmission tunnel. Early '56s used a 1.5-inch white plastic knob on the shifter. Later ones used a chrome one. That went into '57. Also in '56, you became a true option for the park brake alarm, the windshield washers, the radio, and the heater became a true option in '56, where before they were just a mandatory option in '53s through '55s. See the cowl vent knob changed from the tulip shape to a round. Also, if the heaters was not ordered as an option, there was dummy knobs in their place. You can see the radio was not was an option, and it was not ordered in this car and blocked off. The courtesy light was an option. If it was not ordered, the holes were still in the bottom of the dash for it. In 55, the mirror changed to a thumb screw to tighten, to adjust the height, so the mirror was adjustable up and down. And that went from 55 into early 57. Early 56, the shift pattern was basically the same as the 53s through 55s. It's just that the shift pattern was on a plate, and this was, I had a very tough time trying to find an image of this. There are not that many out there because they changed pretty quick to this shift pattern, which is more readily available for the Power Glides. The ashtrays with the shift pattern on the console in the 56 had a snuffer in the middle. You can see the handle was peened over. It's not riveted or screwed to the cover. Also in 56, the heater changed from a circulating type to an it brought in outside air. It was a fresh air considered heater. So it took two more knobs. You had basically the knob closest to the steering column was the same as before. It controlled the blower speeds, and if you pulled it out for the defrost, pushed it in for the heaters. The next one to the right controlled the amount of heat you got out, and they added one clear to the far right next to the speaker, and that controlled the amount of outside air that was brought into the car. Here's a close-up of the defrost, the blower fan control switch. You can kind of see on there. It's at the back, it shows the fan and the speeds, and then the pull for defroster on the front of it. The wipers had a black dot in the center of the knob, and we went back to the foot pump in 55, so there was no push buttons on 55s, 56, or 57s. It was all controlled through the foot pump like the very early 53s. You can see the hood release changed a little bit in 56. It is now T-shaped chrome handle, and it has hood release imprinted on the front of it in black letters. You can see here this 56 did not have a park brake alarm. It's blocked off up in front of the steering column. '56 come out with a power top. This is a switch. I forgot to mention here in this last slide, the power top switch is located right here next to the hood release. And that's what the switch itself looks like. That's what the knob looks like sticking out toward the front. The steering wheels starting in 56 was what they called a competition type. The front edge towards the driver had circular motions around the front edge, and also the holes were, somebody needs to mute their microphone. The steering wheels had the holes on the spokes going out were kind of chamfered on the driver's side. The back side of the steering wheel had radial marks rather than the circular marks on the front. They went from the center to the outside of the rim. The horn button, 56, 57s, tapered on the outside, had the Chevrolet on the top, the Corvette on the bottom with the cross flags. They were highlighted with black. See the difference between the ignition switch from the 53, 55 to the 56. No longer had the little fluting along the outside. You can see they had notches around the outside edges right here, and also here to be tightened up, so you can tighten them into the dash. 57, what the airbox option, you lost the tack was moved from the dash up to the steering column, and in place of the tack down there, you can see there is an emblem. It's basically the same emblem that was put on the hood and the trunk of the car. It just filled the gap of the hole when they moved that tachometer up there, and we'll get into that a little more in the gauges part of it. 57, the radio and the heater was definitely an option. This particular car did not have either. You can see there are still knobs here for the heaters. They are just dummies. There's what the underneath of the dash looks like for a heater, a non-heater car. '57, late or midway through '57, they come out with the 4-speed transmission. Excuse me. The area around the shifter boot over in here was a little larger for the 4 speeds than it was for the 3 speeds. You can see a 3-speed here. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is a little narrower than it is on the 4 speeds. You can see the ashtray. The lid should open from the driver's side toward the passenger side to be put in right. 57, they changed the mirrors. They done away with the thumb screw adjustment and put a nut on the shaft to adjust it up and down. 56 to 57, they changed the ignition switch. They left off the chrome outer bezel on the 57s. That happened somewhere around VIN 1957. One of them little changes that you really just don't pay any attention to until you actually see it. So we'll take a little break here. Is there any questions, or has anybody got any comments, or no, I said anything wrong? Because I know I've got so much information, I may be looking at one thing and telling you something else. So if there's any information anybody would like to add or any questions?
I don't see any chat messages yet, so feel free to type something in or unmute yourself and ask a question.
Don't be afraid to speak up if you got some more information that I've missed too. Okay, I guess we'll move on along. 58, the dash changed. This particular dash is at least a 59. No, it's looks like it's got the package tray under it, but it looks like it's still got the 58. Oh well, we'll move on. This is what the configuration from 58 to 62 looks like. Here is a bare dash with nothing on it. You can see the holes in the transmission tunnel for the shifter and the where you can put the ashtray down in. The end pads on the 58s and most of the 59s was polished stainless steel. The defroster vent was now painted to the dash color, and the dash pad itself in 58 was what they call a Chatham pebble grained. The mirror was totally different starting at 58. You can see it still has a jam nut on the shaft going in, but the upright was pretty much permanent. You couldn't adjust it up and down. '58 through '62 power tops. There was a switch up underneath the dash. I've got a better picture of kind of its location, but the hole was there whether the power top was on the car or not. And a lot of times the hole in the dash, the pad and the dash did not quite line up perfectly, but they are still there. Also, the hole is still there for the courtesy light, which is right in front of it, whether the courtesy light was used or not. There's a picture of the courtesy light and the power top switch. It's just a 3-position switch, up and down to the right and left, center off. The cowl vent control arm was bolted to the side of the column going down to the transmission tunnel there. Steering wheel was still the competition style like it started in '56. Horn button was still tapered, except in '58 the letters was white instead of black like they were in '57, and this went into possibly some early '59s was white also, but then they went back to black after that. Knobs for '58. Headlight was clear to the left of the dash. Wiper was next. Then the ignition switch was right of the steering column, and the cigarette lighter was right of that. The temperature of the heat controls was in the center part. There's a picture of the ignition switch, 58s through 62s. The radio and the heater was a true option, so if it was not ordered, there was no holes cut for the heater controls in the center part there, and the hole was cut for the radio, so it was blocked off with a block-off plate, which had the Chevrolet inscription on the center of the block-off plate. The '58 shifter, pretty much a straight shaft yet, with the plastic white ball on top. Here's a picture of the car with no courtesy light, and you can also see the hole for the power top. And there's the courtesy light in front of the power top hole, just above the where the radio would be, or the heater controls and the clock down at the bottom. This particular picture is from at least a '60, because you can tell it's got the package tray here, and if you look up in here, you can see the bars above and below the Corvette, which started in '60. Difference between the 3-speed and the 4-speed console for the '58s basically were pretty much the same. They just changed the shift pattern plate, which screwed to the center. Here's a power glide shift plate. This went from mid '58 to '61. The top one is an original, the bottom is a reproduction. You can kind of see the difference in the font. Definitely there's a difference in the lines between the fonts there. The originals are a lot finer, a lot more precise, I guess. '58 Cove, you can see had a brushed aluminum plate in there with a Corvette embossed in it, and the letters were white. The way the grab bars were bolted to the dash from '58 through '62. You can see this is a '59 or later with the package tray below the opening. 59, you got the reverse lockout on the shifter. Also, the plate, console plate was more rounded edges on actually on the outside here and on the inside of this lower part on the 4-speed cars. You can see the difference between the 58 4-speed and the 59 4-speed plates. '59 Cove still had the brushed aluminum with the Corvette in it. The letters were black in '59, and you also had the package tray underneath. '58, we had the Chatham pebble grain on the top, where in '59 it went to what they call the Seville leather grain, which you can see that there's a considerable difference in the pattern. This is really coarse grain, where this is kind of fine with lines. The heater controls for '58, you can see that there is no black or white line on the where there is on the '59s and '60s. '59 knobs, basically the same as the '58s, other than the blower control. There's a difference between the shift plates from the 3-speed and power glides to the 4-speeds. The 3-speeds and the power glide plates were basically the same, just had a different shift pattern screwed to it. The opening size for the shifter was different, and also the cornering roundness of the corners was changed. You can see around this was kind of a grained of metal. The emergency brake and the hood release was mounted on the same bracket. Can't hardly see the hood release. Should have got a better picture of this one, but you can see it above the parking brake. The horn button went back to black on the letters and the cross flags in '59. In late '59, they started putting bezels around the speakers. You can see here how it's got a rim around it, where the earlier '58s and '59s were just sunk down in the dash. I don't know whether that was due to fit problems or why they did that. Starting late in '59, the end caps changed from the stainless steel to painted interior colors, and I believe they were plastic at this time. '60 to '62, the Cove was still the brushed aluminum with a black Corvette embossed in it. They've added a red bar at the top, a blue bar at the bottom, starting in '60. '61, the knobs changed from '58 to '60. Also in '61, windshield washers became a standard item, so you all have a button on every one of them where you didn't on before. And like I said, '61 was when they went from the mirroring being, the silvering being put on the back of the glass to the front. So that would be the last you would see the gap. In 1961, the ashtrays changed. They put 2 cigarette holders beside the snuffer. You can see the handle is still kind of peened on the top. It should not be screwed or riveted. Better picture of the snuffers. The shift pattern changed in 62 for the power glides. The 62 still had the 3 speeds, and the power glide still had the corners like the earlier ones, or the 4 speeds still had, or yeah, had the more rounded corners. You can see how much more rounded they are there. 62 knobs are the same as the 61s. The turn signal for 61, 62 changed to an off-white, kind of a cone shape type plastic knob. The end of the knob should have a recess in it with kind of either a flat spot at the bottom or a flaw type from the plastic molding. Before we get into the C2s, is there any comments or anybody want to add anything or tell me what I screwed up in that part?
Yeah, there's a number of chat questions to go through before people unmute themselves. One thing to clarify for everybody, as I mentioned, if there's multiple members attending and one person logs in, I will need the sign-in sheet. But if you're just attending, say with your spouse or family member, somebody else that has your same NCRS number, as long as they pre-registered, and I see one of you logged in, then everybody that pre-registered will get the point. So nothing more you need to do, but if somebody happens to be missing in another week or so, certainly reach out to me. First question was, for 53s, did you say they had 2 hood releases?
53s and early 54s, yes.
Okay. And then were any of the 57 airbox cars, did they have radios?
That's kind of I've heard that one of them possibly did, but for the most part, my understanding, the them cars was built basically for racing, so there was really no purpose of putting a radio, heater, or a lot of stuff extras on the 57 airbox cars. Supposedly, I've heard that there was possibly one with a radio. I can't confirm that. I don't know.
Okay. Then the defroster bezels, are they the same size for 53 to 62?
53 to 57 are the same. I think the 58 through 62s might be a little different. I think they're a little bigger, if I remember right. They're real close in size, though.
Okay, another question was, I'll read it. I just installed a dash pad on a 61. It had the power top switch cut out in the dash. I assume all cars had the cutout in the fiberglass, but would the dash pad have the hole cut even if it didn't have the power top?
Yes, all dash pads come with the hole cut for the power top and the courtesy light, whether it was installed there or not. If it did not get the courtesy light, then there was a block off plate put on. But they did not block off the hole for the power top. It was in all cars.
Okay, slide 89. All right, so you mentioned 58, 59, the reverse lockout was added. Must have been the wrong slide number reference. So you referenced the reverse lockout was added. Was there a different transmission or was the change handled by just linkage?
No, it was the same, basically the same transmission. It was all in the linkage part of it. There was kind of a catch down there that would not let it go into reverse unless you lifted that up. It was a piece that kind of slid down to so you could not put it in reverse unless you lifted that up. So no, it was not in the transmission. It was in the linkage part.
Okay, and that's it for chat questions. So if anybody else wants to unmute and ask a question, feel free.
You got anything else to add? Please, this is how we all learn. I'm not saying I know all this stuff. I learned so much looking this stuff up. It was unbelievable, but I'm open if anybody's got anything else to add.
Hey, Mike, this is Jerry Garrett down in Evansville.
Yeah.
I was wanted to ask the question about the power top switch on that dash pad. I haven't got that glued in on this guy's car yet, but I was curious whether I should cut that hole in that pad with that switch. So you were saying that, yes, the hole would be there. So there wouldn't be any kind of cover plate or any kind of bezel over that hole. It would just be a rough cut opening in the dash pad itself then.
Correct. And a lot of times they did not line up perfectly too, Jerry.
Okay. Yeah, this guy bought this car, a year and a half ago, his first Corvette he's ever owned, and decided he wanted to do a body off and blew it apart. So, we've been putting the car back together for the last few months or so. And yesterday was time for the dash pad, and then we found that hole. And I wasn't positive that it was for the power top switch or not, but I did cut out the hole for the courtesy light, but I held off on that power top switch hole until I found out something. So thank you very much for that information. It's great help.
Anybody else?
Mike,
Yes.
this is Alden Miles. Could you go back to slide 68?
68.
Yes.
There might be, for easier navigation, Mike, I don't know what your screen looks like, but there might be something that says, like, say, slide 74 of 200. You might be able to click on that and type in a number and hit enter.
Right there.
To it.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, you talked about the 2 holes for the shifter in the tunnel. I've seen 3 holes cut in that tunnel up closer towards the firewall. Was that only on automatic cars?
You say 3 holes where? Up in this area?
In the tunnel up closer towards the firewall. I believe those were so that you could unbolt the power glides, but I'm not sure if that was only, if those holes were only on the automatic cars or if they were on all the cars.
I can't answer that one, be truthful with you.
Okay. All right, appreciate it.
I'll have to do some more digging. Every time I do one of these, I find more questions than I got answers.
Yeah, these holes are probably 1.5 to 2 inches, and there were 3 of them.
What did you see them on the 53? How they were up in there? Is that what you were talking about?
No, I did notice them on that, but I've seen them specifically on the 58 to 60s.
Okay, I know in the 53s, I think there's like 3 holes right up in this area.
Well, these were up further underneath, right up a little higher from where you were indicating.
Okay, we get done at the end. I'll go back to the start, Alden, and you can look at them and tell me if that's what you were talking about.
All right, appreciate it, Mike.
Okay, anybody else?
No other chat questions.
Okay. Start with the C2s now. Basic C2 dash here. Here's a 63 with air conditioning. You can see all the added pieces on the air conditioner. You got 2 more knobs up to the top above the clock with a vent up in the center. vent down below on each outside corner. In late 63, there was a simulated wood grain plastic steering wheel offered. Here's a right-hand drive C2, which is kind of an odd, I just found this and thought I'd put this in just to show. There's a bare dash for a 63. No radio, no heater. The centerpiece had no cutout for the radio. The heater holes was plugged. The basic steering wheel was a plastic rim leather grain pattern colored to the interior. The instrument cluster part itself was basically two different ones for 63. So you got probably a half a year of one style and a half a year of the other. Here's the difference. Before the AC, they only had one notch cut in the bottom for the headlight switch. After the AC, they put the second one in. So a very early 63, you would not expect to see the second notch over here. The park brake handle to the right side. Park brake in white block letters. The underside of the driver's side part of the dash on the early 63. You can see the headlight switch is bolted with the ears above the metal part itself. The hood release to the clear to the left with the black T handle with hood release imprinted in it. The first knob here controls this side vent on the driver's side. This knob controls the odometer reset for the trip odometer reset. This knob on the right side here controls the right side vent for the passenger side of the car.
Hey, Mike, for early 63, is there any mention that the steering wheel was matched to the interior color?
Yeah. About all 63s was matched to the interior color other than when they went to the late wood grain, simulated wood grain steering wheel.
Okay. The glove box door in a 63 is unique to 63. There's a lot of parts unique to a 63 though. It was painted on the back side, which made it look like there was clear plexiglass over the center part of the door itself. Early 63s, the lock was kind of embedded back into the door itself. Later 63s had a larger round bezel around the lock. The Corvette emblem itself is basically a shrunk size of the rear deck emblem. The grab bar above the glove box door was held on by 4 screws in 63 through mid 64. The heater control knobs and the knobs on the for the wiper and the cigarette lighter and the dash are something similar to the 61, 62s, but there is a little difference in them. The bezels behind the knobs for the heater and the radio were a solid metal piece. They were not backlit through the dash like later 64s and on. So
if you were driving a 63 at night, you did not have near the illumination in the car as you did in later years. The console was an aluminum insert over the top with the shift pattern glued into a recessed area here at the bottom. The side panels for the radio part of the console coming down, there was 3 different kind of panels used. There was a long panel to start with, and then they shortened it up for better air circulation, is what I read in a thing from GM to the dealers, to just cut it off to help the air circulation. And then later they went from 2 screws that held it on to a single screw that held it on. Here's the 63 steering wheels. Like I said, they were color coordinated with the interior, unless you got the wood grain toward the end. The early wheels, 63 steering the spokes had a circular turning marks. You can kind of see them turning this way. Later ones had marks running lengthwise from the center to the outer rim. The turn signal knob itself was black in 63. You can see the end out is kind of concaved in. A 63 Power Glide shift pattern. You can see the plate is glued in basically where the 4-speed was. This particular car has power windows, which was added to the back side of that. I want you to notice also the ashtray opening here, how they're angled. They are angled on Power Glides and 4-speeds and 3-speeds. A little later, you will understand why I'm bringing that out right now. There's a 3-speed shifter. You can see the shift plate back there, basically where the other ones were, just a 3-speed in there. You can see it does have the angled corners on the ashtray. This particular car did not have a radio, and you can see there is no cutout at all, but it does have the heater knobs. There's the power window switch behind a 4-speed. Basically the same location, no matter what transmission it had in it. Ashtrays, 63 was different than 64 and later, the way it was held in. '64 dash, basically the same layout as the 63s. They're all basically the same through 67. Difference in the glove box doors, you can see the 63 over here. There is no peened over places where it is put together around the outer lip. There's the face of the 64 door. You can see the lock basically looks like the early 63 locks, except it is not embedded back into the door like it was in 63. The instrument bezel itself, the 63 versus the 64. So basically 63, some late 63s possibly had the 64 with a kind of a bigger filler plate around the steering column going through. Mid 64, the grab bar above the glove box door, they added 2 more screws, so there's now 6 holding it on there. And if you're judging these, you might want to check, just kind of run your hand around here because they are noted to crack from probably over tightening. Another kind of interesting thing is there was 2 extra instrument panel lights added in 65 versus the 63, 64. So basically, you've got 2 different panels for 63 and 1 for 64 that is totally different than 65, 6, and 7. Difference in the ignition switch between 63, 64 versus 65, 6, and 7. Horn caps or buttons. 63, 64 had the Chevrolet and the Corvette, where in 65, 66 they had an extra circle kind of around the cross flag area, and these corners are more sharp than on the 67s. You'll see they're kind of more rounded when you get up to the 67. It's different than even the 65, 66. '64 console, 4-speed. Say power windows back here, basically kind of in the same spot as they were in 63, but you don't have the brushed or aluminum facing like you did in 63. 64, you still got the angled pieces on the ashtray. '63 versus 64 shifter plate or shift plate pattern. You can see the 63s go up a lot closer to the numbers than the 64s and laters. '64 Power Glide. You can see the switches back here. Basically, the shift pattern is glued in the same spot. Basically, the same opening as on the 3 speeds and the 4 speeds. And the ashtray has still got the corners beveled. '64 side panel. You can see here there's an extra vent added in. There's a vent up in here to the front. You can see they still only have the single screw like the late 63s did. Parking brake. You can see the 63 had bigger block letters and they were painted white, where the 64s were smaller and painted black. On this particular slide, you can see that the hood release is moved over when an air-conditioned car. Also, the headlight switch is moved over. '64, the steering wheel is a walnut grained rim rather than the painted grain like in the 63s. A little closer view of the simulated wood graining. The bezels for 64s were a plastic. They were painted around the area here where the area where it's got what they are or what they control is clear, where it is backlit through the dash, so it is illuminated at night, where the 63s still had the metal one and there was no illumination on them. 63 through 66, the turn signal handle or the knob on the end was chrome plated type surface. It's a different view of it. '64, we had a another control knob added underneath the dash. There was in the coupes, this was just in the coupes only. They had a rear fan that actually vented out through the side vents on the pillar behind the driver's head. This controlled the speeds of the fan. It was a 3-speed fan, I believe, where you could pull this out to the different speeds to turn the fan on and get air moving out of the passenger compartment. You can see the trip odometer still underneath the dash. Over here to the right, you can see the vent for the passenger side, the vent for the driver's side, the hood release, and the headlight switch. Glove box door for 65, basically the same.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah,
hey, before you start in with 65, we got a few questions while we're in the 63 to 64s. Okay. So 63 to 64s, the center dash around the radio area, when did that grain change? Was there ever a vinyl cover over the fiberglass?
Yes, early 63s, they were plain fiberglass. Then starting sometime early in 63, there was a vinyl put over 63s and 64 center dashes. 65, they went back to the straight fiberglass. I guess I had more of that in with the radios because there was no bezel on the early 63 radios because there was no vinyl there. It went straight to the fiberglass, but I forgot to mention that when I was in there.
Okay, and then 63, the glove box doors, those, to clarify, those were fiberglass, then 64 and later went to metal?
The back side of them, yes. I think that's right. If somebody can help me out on that, I believe that's right.
And slide 145. Question is, are the consoles the same for 64 through 67?
No. Nope. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. I pointed out the ashtray thing. That is one particular thing, but there is some other differences here that I will get into here in a little bit.
Then slide 146. Question is the vent door pull cable routing correct? Nothing goes through the square hole at the front of the radio cover panel.
Now, what was the question?
Is the vent door pull cable routing correct? Then it says nothing goes through the square hole at the front of the radio cover panel.
I'm not following their question.
Yeah, Scott Harrison, that was your question. If you want to unmute and clarify. And then one more question on 148. See, the question is the light door switch a reproduction?
It looks like this one, the knob's a little longer where it may be, I don't know. Some of the pictures is kind of hard to detect some of the stuff, but.
And that was it.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what he's asking on this.
Let's see, on the right picture, there's a vent pull cable. Is the cable routed correctly?
Oh, basically, this here?
Yeah, yep.
I can't honestly answer that one. Is there anybody that can answer that out there? Somebody help me, please.
Hi, I've got a comment.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that cable just happens to be laying on top of the panel. It does not go through it.
Okay. I mean, it is up above it here. Is that what he's asking here?
Yeah, and we had a few other people chime in and say that is correct.
Okay.
And then on the 148, somebody chimed in to say that that right switch is a reproduction, the longer switch.
Yeah, it looks like the handle here, the handle sticking down a little farther than what it should be.
And then did the 64 dash cluster have a cutout under the windshield wiper switch like a 63?
For moving the headlight switch over?
Not sure.
Yeah, after they started the air conditioning, they all had 2 notches in them, even up through 67, because when air conditioning was installed, the supposedly the headlight switch was supposed to be moved over to the inside one, so it did not interfere with the air conditioning vent coming out there. But I'll get into that when we get here a little bit later. I got some comments on that too. So, but yeah, they all the dash clusters at the bottom after 63, after air conditioning was an option, should have 2 cutouts in the bottom. I hope that answered the question.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And that's it for questions.
Okay. All right. The 65 glove box door, basically the same as the 64s. The inside of the glove box, the way a lot of the reproductions are not correctly aligned here. They put the wrong side over, and then the staple should be crimped on the inside of the door, which a lot of the reproductions are not done correctly. Bezels for the 65 are a little different than the 64s. Knobs are a little different also. Here you can see the grain dash for the 63, 64 versus the just the fiberglass dash here, 65, 6, and 7. You can see it's a lot smoother. There's no grain like over in this area. Okay, here's the reason I was pointing out these tapers. When I run across this, I looked at this slide right here for a long time, trying to figure out whether I had a reproduction console panel here or not. The more I got to looking, every automatic has a square opening from 65, 6, and 7 on the automatic cars. 3-speed, all manuals still have the taper. And I questioned myself a long time on this, and I called a number of knowledgeable C-2 judges on this. And when I asked the question, I undoubtedly got the answer, I guess I've never paid attention to that. And I for the longest time, I thought I had a reproduction panel, but every automatic I found is like that. So this is just one of them things that it took me a long time to get it through my head, but this is the way they are. I'd like to open up, and if anybody has noticed this prior to me bringing this up, because like I said, a couple of the C-2 judges that I've talked to wasn't really aware. I mean, they really never paid that much attention to this. And there's a big difference there. And if you look also on the automatic dashes, there is no place for the shift pattern back in here. It is all up on this. I mean, this whole area up in here is totally different than the 4-speed area.
There's a question, if the door shape is different, is the ashtray also different, or is it the same ashtray?
It's the same ashtray. It looks to me like the ashtray would come out of this opening a lot easier than it would come out of this opening. And I know they're not the easiest thing to get in and out on the 4-speed cars, but it looks to me like the automatics would come in and out a lot easier.
And there's a question on that slide. Should there be a screw in the center chrome bezel in front of the shifter?
Up here, up in this area,
That's what the question sounds like.
I
No,
don't.
it's, if I may, it's the one up in front of the shifter. We have a 4-speed manual 63, and it's the bezel that makes the U shape there where the radio console comes down.
Basically, you're talking right in here.
It's in the center, though, right in front of where the shifter, yep.
Right in here. There is some screws in the earlier cars that's not in the later ones, so I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at the 63s to be honestly,
Yeah,
unless somebody else.
On your picture there on the right with the automatic, if you zoomed in, it looks like there's a screw. You see where it goes around on the driver's side? It looks like there's a screw about halfway back, but ours has a screw there.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But ours has one in the center too, right there. It's in your picture, blocked by the shifter handle, correct? Yes.
Okay. The 63s are different than the later cars. I do know that for a fact because the way it goes up around here is a lot different. I mean, it's basically 3 pieces on the 63s. So yeah, it bolts in a lot different.
So the screw should be there. Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it should be. Can somebody else comment on that?
And there was one comment on slide 156, since we're close to that one. It's mentioned that the glove box staples reproduction are different than the typical factory.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the reproduction boxes are there's a lot of configuration difference between a lot of the reproduction boxes than the originals. I won't say all of them, but you know, a lot of them I've seen are there's considerable difference in configuration of them.
Yep. And there's more chat responses that is correct. There's a center screw for the 63, but not the 64 through 7.
Yeah. Yeah, the console itself, there's a lot of differences between early ones and late ones. Go ahead, ma'am.
I said thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So we're here for, to try and help each other out.
No other chat questions.
Another one?
No, no others.
Hey, Mike.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was funny what you said there about that ashtray. So I went back to this 66 that we restored back in 2017, and yeah, it's exactly the same on that automatic 66 that we worked on. I'd never noticed that before.
It was just when I looked at that, it took me a long time. I mean, I honestly thought I had a picture of a reproduction until I started looking at more automatics, and all of them. I got a real good friend that's got a 67 400 horse tri-power air automatic car, and it looks to be really original, and it had the square one in it. And so then I started looking at even more of them, and yeah, it's just something you don't really notice until somebody brings it out to you.
Right. Yeah, and this was a national top flight car, so I'm sure if it was incorrect, someone would have pointed it out. But yeah, it's exactly like your picture.
So, okay, we'll move on here a little bit then. Starting at 65, they put holders down to store the seat belts at the back of the front console. The radio side panel basically are a lot like the 64s. 65, you got a power antenna, and the switch was located on the driver's side radio panel. We go back here, it's kind of right here behind the park brake. I took this out of the judging manual to kind of show you what the reproductions are not, the font is not correct and located in the right spots compared to the originals. Steering wheel for 65. Starting at 65, the teakwood wheel was offered as an option. This is an original teakwood wheel. You can see all the color of the wood are, I mean, it varies as it goes around. There's one on a car. And there's a close-up of where the spokes go into the wood. And you can kind of see on this how the finger holes are kind of a rounded area there. Unlike a lot of the reproductions, they're not quite as rounded, and if you stick your fingers in there, you can kind of feel the difference. These are more squared off around the outside edges, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. I don't know if anybody can clarify that any better than what I did, but if you've ever grabbed a original teak wood and a reproduction, you can definitely feel the difference. 66 glove box door. You can see the difference here between the emblem on the door between the 63, 4, 5 versus the 66, 67. '66 had a tire pressure label on the door. It varies from 67, also had a tire pressure label on the door, but it's got some little different labeling on the area in here. 66 bezels are more flattened with a black center part of the knobs. And bezels are similar to the 65s. 66, the seat belt storage area, there was 2 different brackets used in 66 for the 2 different seat belts. The earlier ones did not have a notch in them, or the later ones did. '66, you still had the power antenna switch. You can see where it's located a little better in this picture. Also in '66, a hazard, 4-way hazard was an option, and it was located above the parking brake bracket at the top of it. You can see the mounting of the underdash area here on the 66 is basically the same earlier. This vent controls this over here. You can see the bracket for the hood release, and the headlight switch is mounted above the dash. You can still see the extra opening over here for the headlight switch. If it's got air conditioning, it would be moved over there, and the other knobs would be moved a little bit. Park brake basically the same as after 63. T-shaped handle with black letters, smaller black letters. Starting at 65, you could get a telescopic column. This was the lock area for the telescopic. You twist it and it would come in and out, and you locked it back in. You can see the horn button is definitely different for the telescopic wheels versus the standard columns. When you got a telescopic column, your odometer reset trip, rather than coming straight down, was off of a bracket and stuck out toward you like the vent knobs did. '67 AC center dash. See the vent, basically the vent was in the same spot from 63 to 67. And another thing on this one, you can kind of see that the speaker bezel up on the top of the dash, the fit was not the best in the world. The glove box, you can see here the tire pressure label on the 67 also. Steering wheel, 66 in here versus a 67. It overlaps. '67 turn signal, you can see it's not just a cone shaped, it flares out at the end, and it's not indented in the end, it's kind of bowed out a little bit more. You kind of see a different angle of the turn signal knob. Air conditioning cars all had these controls that control the amount of air come out of them. If you didn't want so much air, you could turn them down. They were in a bow tie shape, both passenger and driver's side. You can see the difference in the hood release on a 67 versus 66 and earlier. Automatic console, you can see here again, it's got the rectangular opening. Another picture of the power window switches at the back. '67, you can see here that the park brake moved to the center console. They also had seatbelt storage here, and they were solid in this area up till VIN around 7,000. After VIN 7,000, they had a notch cut in them. '67, we lost the opening for the grab bar above the glove box door. '67 radio side panel. The vents along the outside was moved onto the center panel on '67. There's a passenger side. If you had an air-conditioned car, the passenger side vent over here was as a air return for the air conditioning, and you did not have a vent, and that was through all air-conditioned cars, not only just in '67. If you had an air-conditioned car, you lost the passenger side vent. The park brake handle for '67, you can see the earlier ones. This area was black, where the later ones was chromed. And there's another picture of the location of it. I thought you could probably see this a little better with the white interior, showed up a lot better. There's an early handle. '67 four-way flashers was standard. Early cars had the short flasher on the column versus the later cars, which had the longer flasher. You can see the flasher engraved in the end of this one, where it was on the side of the barrel on this one. There's a picture of them on off the columns. You can see the longer one sticks out a lot farther than the short one. The horn caps, like I said earlier, these were more rounded. These were more squared. 63 through 63, 64 was the same, and 65, 66 was the same. And they were more squared than what these are. They're just a lot more rounded than 67. Kind of hard to get a picture of to explain it, but if you next time you see one, you can kind of look at them and compare. 67 telescopic column. The lock part changed. You just got a one knob sticking up, and basically the horn cap was the same for the telescopic column. It changed with the collapsible column that come about in 67. And that's it for the first part. Any comments, any questions? Anybody add anything? I hope I got a little bit of information to you. You learned a little bit from me, and appreciate everybody being here. Thank you.
Great job, Mike. There's numerous comments, not necessarily questions in the chats. I'm not going to read them all, just more or less for people's info. But if there's one that somebody wants to bring up and discuss, feel free to unmute.
Herb Schlepp here. Just want to thank you for a good presentation.
Thank you, sir. I hope most of you tune in for part 2.
Rick, can you go over the dates for part 2, 3, and 4, please?
Yeah, so part 2 is January 28th. That's dashes C3 through C5. Part 3 is February 18th for gauges C1 to C5. And part 4 is March 4th for radio speakers and antennas for C1 through C5. All should be visible on the national website to register.
The part 2 and part 4 is through the Indiana chapter, and part 1 and part 3 is through the Heart of Ohio chapter.
Yep. Registration process is still the same. You'll just get emails from somebody different.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, Chris here from North Central. A question on the simulated wood grain wheel you mentioned earlier. You had a photo. I'm sorry I didn't catch what slide number it was on, where there were 2 wood grain wheels, and you'd mentioned something about how the rim was attached to the spokes or something that was different between reproductions and originals.
Oh, the teak wood wheels?
No, I thought it was on there. I thought it was on the simulated ones, but
they basically all attach the same way on the simulated ones.
Okay.
The teak wood kind of laps over and it's kind of glued different. But the biggest thing on the teak wood is between the originals and reproductions is the finger grips here. I'm going to try and go back to the 53s for Alden here if he's still on.
Yeah, he is. I just cut him off.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike. Get the clarification.
Yeah, somebody also mentioned in the chats on the teak wheels, beyond just the indents for the fingers, that you can see differences in how the pieces of wood are connected between original and reproduction.
Also on the teak wheels, that particular wood is not available like it was then, and it's usually a lot different shading on the reproductions versus the originals. I do know that for a fact too. So there's quite a few differences between the reproductions and the originals. My goodness, I didn't realize I had that many slides. I don't have a thing up here where I can go back either, Nick. I don't see it anyway, unless I click clear out of it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you hit escape, it'll take you back to a different view. That might be easier to scroll through.
I think it's about the first slide I had.
And there was a comment if you're going to 19, assuming it's
Okay.
the right slide reference. I'll mention something when you get to 19.
Okay. I hope I didn't bore everybody to death.
No, I think a lot of these photos were great.
19.
19, well, I don't know if that's the right reference. Yeah, somebody just mentioned that the glove box bezel pics were switched for early and late, but obviously it's not the right one. So feel free to email Mike if you think there was a mislabeling on anything.
Great job, guys. Very informative. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alden, you see these 3 holes right here? Is that what you're talking about?
Are you talking about those 3 holes in the dash itself?
No. Right down
yeah,
here.
that I see them. Yeah. Are those for removing a power glide?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why they were there. I just, when I seen this picture, I noticed them right away, and I never really found out what they're for. I don't know if
Okay,
anybody
'cause
out there can help. Huh?
I was told that they were only for automatics, that the 4-speed car, well, in 53, they only had the power glide, but in the, for example, the 58 cars that if they had 3 holes in them like that, then they were originally an automatic car. But I could never get anybody to confirm that.
Number 4. But yeah, I mean, it's actually I think the power glides in the 53s and 54s mounted. I think they had an adapter plate that went to the 6 cylinders even or something, didn't they? I don't think they mounted different than they did to the V8s.
Okay. Yeah, but those were the holes I was talking about, Mike.
Okay, I'll have to do some more look and see if I can get a picture of an automatic car, bare dash like that.
All right, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah, somebody else responded in the chat saying those holes are for the power glide access.
Okay, great. We all learned something then.
All right, any other questions or comments? All
Super
right.
job as always. Thanks again.
Thank you for coming.
We talk about pasta water, but this is sprinkler too.
Great job, Mike, as always.
Okay. So with that, I think we're going to